She never thought a simple jog would end like this. The air was cool, the street quiet, until the sound of barking shattered the calm. A dog, but not just any dog. This one was trained to hunt, to bite, to tear. And it wasn't just the dog coming for her. It was the badge, the authority, the hate that followed. Samantha's heart raced as she saw the officer's cold eyes. Officer Daniels, ordering his K-9 to attack. But what happened next would not just be a story of survival. It would be a story of defiance, fury, and a woman who fought back when the world tried to crush her. In a moment of pure desperation, Samantha did the unthinkable. Watch till the end to unravel this thrilling story and discover the strength of a woman close to death or in severe pain can do to save herself and fight for justice. For more thrilling stories like this, share and subscribe for more. Samantha had been running for about 20 minutes when the sound of a police siren shattered the quiet evening air. She had no reason to think anything was wrong. In fact, everything was fine. She had been jogging through her usual neighborhood for the last 2 years. The streets were familiar, the people friendly enough, and the sun was slowly dipping behind the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. The cool air helped her push through the final stretch of her evening workout. She was at peace. But all of that would change in an instant. She didn't notice the police car creeping behind her at first. It wasn't until she heard the sound of the tires screeching against the asphalt that her senses were on high alert. She turned to glance over her shoulder, and that's when she saw Officer Daniels. He wasn't parked at a distance, not minding his business, as she'd hoped. No, he had stopped right behind her, the squad car blocking the path she usually took. The headlights were blinding, casting shadows across the quiet street. Samantha's breath caught in her throat. It was just her luck. She took a deep breath, tried to remain calm. This was a common experience, being stopped by the police during a jog, especially as a black woman in a predominantly white neighborhood. She had lived through enough instances of being stopped just to check or looked at funny, but she never imagined this moment would be like this. "Excuse me, miss," Officer Daniels called out as he stepped out of his car, his voice booming and full of authority. "Can I ask where you're headed?" Samantha's brow furrowed. She had been running on public streets, and there was no law against it, but she knew better than to argue with a cop. She stopped jogging, slowing her pace to a walk, and faced him. "Just out for a run," she answered, keeping her voice steady. "I didn't ask for your life story," he snapped, his tone sharp. The arrogance in his voice was unmistakable. "Where exactly are you headed?" Something felt off. Samantha's instincts screamed at her to stay calm, but everything about this officer made her uncomfortable. He stood too close, his hand resting near his belt, where his gun was holstered. He wasn't asking questions as much as he was demanding answers. "I'm just going back home," she said, trying to keep her voice neutral. She wasn't trying to provoke him, but she could feel his hostility. Something in the air had shifted. Then, the situation escalated beyond anything Samantha had ever imagined. Without any warning, Officer Daniels reached into his car and called for backup. In the distance, she heard the growl of an engine, the unmistakable sound of a K-9 unit vehicle pulling into the street. Her stomach sank. She knew what was coming next. The door of the K-9 unit slammed shut, and out came the most menacing dog she had ever seen, a German Shepherd. The K-9 unit was one of the most feared tools in any police officer's arsenal, trained to hunt down criminals, to track, to incapacitate, to attack without question. "Sick 'em, boy," Officer Daniels barked as he pointed toward her. The dog's ears perked up and his body immediately tensed. Without hesitation, the animal lunged at her. Samantha's heart slammed against her chest, but she didn't freeze. She was angry that this was happening to her in her own neighborhood, at the hands of someone who swore to protect and serve. The German shepherd's teeth were bared as it rushed toward her, its growl deafening. The sound alone was enough to send a chill down her spine. But Samantha didn't back down. She had been in situations like this before, feeling the weight of systemic racism press on her every single day, being judged by her skin, always having to prove herself. But this was different. This time, the badge wasn't just a symbol of authority. It was a weapon used against her. The dog's jaws snapped shut on her calf. The pain was instant, fiery. It was as if her entire leg was on fire. But instead of cowering, she shot a furious look at Officer Daniels. "What the hell?" she screamed, her voice cracking. "What do you think you're doing?" Daniels grinned, his face full of smug satisfaction. "You think you can run from me? From my dog? We'll teach you respect around here." The bite hurt, but it was the sting of his words that truly cut deep. This wasn't just about a dog attacking her. This was about the system that had always treated her like less than human. It was about a man who had decided she wasn't worth respect, and a dog that was simply following orders. But Samantha was not going to lie down and take it. She had been fighting all her life. Fighting for dignity, fighting for equality. She wouldn't let this officer break her. With her leg in the dog's grip, she felt the weight of the officer's gaze upon her, and she knew she had to act. In an instant, her hand shot down toward Officer Daniels' holster, feeling the cold steel of the weapon she had seen so many times in her life. She couldn't believe she was doing it, but there was no other choice. What happened next was nothing short of unbelievable. Would Samantha make it out of this alive, or would Officer Daniels overpower her? How far was she willing to go to defend herself in a moment where survival depended on defiance? You won't believe the choice she makes next. The sound of the dog's growl was deafening in the tense air, and its grip on Samantha's leg tightened. Her skin was on fire from the vicious bite, but it wasn't the pain of the wound that consumed her. It was the suffocating, relentless feeling of being hunted. The dog's teeth dug deeper, and she could feel its hot breath on her skin. Samantha's thoughts raced. The officer, Daniels, was standing right behind her. She could hear his smug chuckles, his satisfaction at what was happening to her. He had unleashed a dog, fully knowing that it was his weapon. This wasn't a simple act of enforcement. It wasn't about safety. This was about power, control, and the belief that his authority was absolute. But Samantha wasn't going to back down. Not this time. The pain from the dog's jaws was blinding, but there was no time to give in to it. Samantha's pulse thudded in her ears as she reached toward her only means of defense, the officer's gun. The weight of the weapon was cold and foreign in her hand, but she didn't hesitate. She had no choice now. With every ounce of strength she could muster, she grabbed hold of the gun and lifted it. Her mind flashed back to every time she had been told to be quiet, to keep her head down, to let it go. This time, though, she was going to fight. She was going to make sure that this moment, this nightmare, wasn't going to break her. The officer's laughter echoed again, but this time it sounded different. Uncertain, confused. He wasn't laughing anymore. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he shouted, moving quickly toward her. But it was too late. Samantha was already in motion. She aimed the gun, the cold metal now in her hand, feeling the weight of her defiance. Her finger found the trigger. She took a deep breath, steadying her hand despite the intense pain shooting through her leg. The officer was getting closer. He was right behind her, and just as he reached out to grab her arm, the dog lunged forward again. The K9 had grown frantic, its grip unrelenting, its growls growing louder. But Samantha pulled the trigger. The shot rang out, so loud that it seemed to rattle her bones. The K9 yelped, its body jerking back from the force of the bullet. The dog stumbled, confused by the sharp pain and the sudden shock. For a brief second, the world was still, the air thick with tension. Samantha froze. The dog, stunned by the gunshot, staggered back, its growl dying down. The officer's eyes widened as he processed what had just happened. His eyes flicked between Samantha and the K-9, his mind scrambling to comprehend what she had just done. He hadn't expected this. He never thought that the woman he was hunting, the woman he thought he had under control, would fight back. He didn't realize that this was a moment of survival for her, not just a struggle for power. Samantha could hear the officer's voice grow louder, his rage mounting. He wasn't just angry, he was fuming, and she knew that in this moment, he wasn't just a man with authority. He was a man ready to do whatever it took to make her pay for this. "You're going to regret that, you crazy bitch," he shouted, advancing on her. But Samantha didn't flinch. She was breathing heavily, but her grip on the gun didn't waver. She was no longer the frightened jogger who had been minding her own business only moments ago. She was a woman who had fought back, a woman who had refused to be another victim of a system that was designed to crush her. The officer reached for his own weapon. It wasn't just about the dog anymore. It was about Samantha, about her defiance. Samantha's finger trembled, but she kept the gun pointed at the officer. "Don't come any closer," she warned, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. But then something even more terrifying happened. From behind Samantha, the sound of another siren echoed through the night. Another police car had arrived. More officers, more K-9 units. Samantha didn't have much time. She could hear their footsteps, the officers quickly closing in, each one more dangerous than the last. She was alone, with no backup, and the officer behind her was about to make his move. Samantha's heart pounded in her chest. The fear of being overwhelmed creeping in. The officers would come for her. But there was something else, something she hadn't considered. What if they didn't just take her down? What if they charged her with something worse? She had shot the dog. She had shot an officer's weapon from his belt. And now, she was standing in front of a group of armed men. But then, as Officer Daniels reached for his gun, the one he was about to use against her, he stopped. It wasn't the sound of the siren that made him freeze. It was a radio in his pocket. He pulled it out, his face draining of color as he heard the message from dispatch. "Officer Daniels, stand down." The voice crackled over the speaker. "This is Chief Collins. We have new intel. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage with the suspect." The world seemed to stop. Samantha stood there, barely believing her ears. Why would the chief intervene? Was she really about to be saved? Or was this just another moment in the system where she was being used as a pawn in a game she didn't understand? Officer Daniels hesitated, his face a mixture of confusion and anger. He didn't know what to make of the command. What was this about? Before he could react, Samantha knew she had to make a decision fast. What would happen next? Would Samantha get arrested for shooting the K-9? Or would this unexpected intervention be her only way out? Would the chief's command truly save her? Or was this another twist in a story that was far from over? The fight for justice, survival, and equality had just begun, and it would take more than one woman's courage to see it through. The moment hung in the air, thick with uncertainty. Samantha could hear the officers moving behind her, their footsteps quickening as they made their way toward the scene. The police car siren echoed louder as the backup arrived, signaling the arrival of even more officers. The tension was suffocating. Samantha's finger trembled on the gun's trigger. Her breathing was shallow, her heart hammering in her chest, but she kept the weapon trained on Officer Daniels. She couldn't afford to show fear. Not now. Not when everything she had fought for was on the line. Then, just as she prepared for the worst, the voice of the chief crackled through the radio. "Officer Daniels, stand down." Her body went rigid. Chief Collins. She hadn't expected him to get involved. Not with everything that had already gone down. Why was he intervening? "This is Chief Collins. We have new intel. Do not engage the suspect. Repeat, do not engage with a woman. Stand down immediately. The words hit like a punch to the gut, and for a moment, everything felt suspended in time. Officer Daniels, who had been ready to pull his gun and take action against her, froze. His eyes locked onto Samantha's, then flicked back to the radio in his hand. It was like the entire world had gone still, all movement halted by an unseen force. "What do you mean? Stand down," he demanded, his voice rising in anger and disbelief. "This woman is a threat. She just shot my dog." I said stand down. The chief's voice was stern, commanding. There was no room for debate. This is not what it seems. The cold air between them thickened, and for a long moment, Officer Daniels just stood there, seething with frustration and confusion. His grip on his gun tightened, but he didn't make a move. The tension in the air was so thick that Samantha could almost taste it. And then the truth came crashing down. "Officer Daniels, your K-9 unit was involved in a rogue operation. The dog wasn't acting under normal protocol. The woman you're holding has been targeted by a larger scheme. Stand down now, or I'll have no choice but to take disciplinary action. Asterisk, asterisk." The words hit Samantha like a thunderclap. Her body froze, the gun shaking in her hand. For a moment, she could hardly process what had just been said. Targeted? A larger scheme? What was the chief talking about? But as the realization slowly dawned on her, she felt a sense of unease settle over her. This wasn't just about a rogue cop attacking her. This wasn't random. Before she could respond, Chief Collins came through the radio once more. "Samantha!" His voice was calm now, almost reassuring. "You don't know it yet, but you're at the center of something much bigger than you realized. I've been tracking this for months. You've been caught in a crossfire between departments with conflicting agendas. Officer Daniels' actions tonight were part of something illegal. You were never meant to be in danger. It was all a mistake." Samantha stood in stunned silence. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by a deep sense of confusion and betrayal. She had been caught up in something much bigger than a simple police encounter, a rogue operation, conflicting agendas, an illegal scheme. Her thoughts swirled in a whirlwind of disbelief. How could she have known? How could she have ever imagined that this seemingly ordinary night jog would lead to this? She had just been out for a run, trying to live her life, and now she was caught in the crosshairs of something far more dangerous. Officer Daniels, now visibly shaking with anger, took a step back. "I don't believe you." His voice was barely above a whisper. "I've been working this case for years. I've followed the law to the letter. I wasn't part of anything illegal. This is just her being violent." The chief didn't flinch. "You were part of something much darker than you realize. Your K-9 unit was weaponized in a secret operation that violated protocol. Samantha was just a pawn." The words hit hard. A pawn. She had been nothing more than a tool in a game she hadn't even known she was part of. Samantha's mind raced. She wasn't just a victim of a random police officer's rage. She was a target in a much larger conspiracy. And the worst part? No one had warned her. No one had told her that this night would be the start of everything unraveling. As the chief's words sank in, Samantha could feel a strange sense of empowerment building inside her. She had fought back against Officer Daniels, and now she had the upper hand. Not just because she had the gun in her hand, but because she now understood something that the officers didn't. She was no longer the one being hunted. She had just been the wrong person in the wrong place at the wrong time. But that didn't make her any less powerful. No, it made her the one who had the answers. She had the story now, and she wasn't going to let it slip away. The radio crackled again. "Samantha, you need to come with us. The truth needs to be exposed. You've been caught up in something much bigger than you could have imagined, And it's time you had a chance to make it right. Trust us, this is your chance to get justice. Not just for yourself, but for everyone else who has been affected by this. Samantha looked around her, feeling the weight of the gun in her hand. She could feel the eyes of the officers on her, the tension building in the air. She had two choices now. Stay quiet, let them take her in, let this moment disappear into the dark corners of the system where so many others had gone unnoticed. Or she could make her own move, take this moment and use it to expose the truth. What had been a fight for survival was now a fight for justice, and the choice was hers. She could feel the eyes of the world on her. But this time, she wasn't going to be silenced. Not again. What will Samantha do? Will she trust the chief and expose the conspiracy that's been hiding in the shadows? Or will she walk away, letting the system cover up everything she's learned? The choice she makes now will change everything. The cold air between them thickened, and for a long moment, Officer Daniels just stood there, seething with frustration and confusion. His grip on his gun tightened, but he didn't make a move. The tension in the air was so thick that Samantha could almost taste it. And then the truth came crashing down. Officer Daniels, now visibly shaking with anger, took a step back. "I don't believe you." His voice was barely above a whisper. "I've been working this case for years. I followed the law to the letter. I wasn't part of anything illegal. This is just her being violent." As the chief's words sank in, the air around Samantha felt different. It wasn't just the weight of the situation. It was a dawning realization that this wasn't a battle she had to fight alone. The system had failed her, but in this moment, she was being heard. Samantha could feel her resolve hardening. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with the clarity that justice was finally on the horizon. Officer Daniels' face turned red with rage as he stepped forward. But this time, Samantha didn't step back. The moment had shifted. She wasn't just a jogger anymore. She wasn't just a woman being brutalized in the street. She was a force. And when she spoke, her voice was steady, fierce. "You tried to break me. You tried to make me small. But today I stand tall." Her words cut through the tension, slicing through the years of pain, the years of injustice she had faced at the hands of a system that didn't care. And now, it wasn't just about surviving the moment. It was about fighting for something bigger. She was fighting for every person who had ever been silenced. For every black person who had ever felt the sting of a system that was never built to protect them. And for the first time, Samantha could see it. Justice wasn't just a dream. It was something she could reach out and take. The backup officers, who had been watching the standoff unfold, slowly backed off. The K-9 unit was called off. And as Officer Daniels stood there, defeated, the weight of his actions finally sinking in, Samantha realized something she had longed for. The power to fight back was always hers. But this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. What would happen to Officer Daniels? To the rogue police operation that nearly destroyed Samantha's life? And would this moment of justice be enough to spark real change? Or would it fade into the shadows like so many others? The battle is far from over. Samantha's story is far from finished. Subscribe now to be part of the journey for justice. And stay tuned for more powerful stories like this one. Together, we can ensure that no one's fight for justice is ever silenced. Stay strong, keep fighting, and never stop believing that your voice matters. Justice is not a gift we're given. It is a fight we take on every day. Samantha's courage in the face of oppression is a reminder that we each have the power to stand tall when others try to push us down. When the system fails, we must become the force for change. Every act of defiance, every step toward truth, brings us closer to the world we deserve. A world where equality and justice are not just ideals, but realities for all. If you believe in fighting for what's right, in challenging the system, and in making your voice heard, this is the place for you. Don't forget to subscribe, because the stories of resilience and justice are far from over. Together, we'll continue to fight for a better tomorrow.